to me. WSRadio.com.
Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McCullough.
And here we are, my dear listener, my dear friend, you who are wise enough to be here. Hey, listen, here's the thing. I know, it's the day after Mardi Gras. Some of you don't know where you are. You woke up naked and hungover, and you're not clear. For others, it's Valentine's Day. You've been looking forward to this day like I have, and my kids have, and my wife has, and we had a special breakfast and special everything because it's Valentine's Day, and we're so excited. We're going places today. It's such a great day. Either way, we're delighted to have you, and we're going to learn some stuff today. If there's one thing I promise you, my friends, it is edutainment. It is education and entertainment here each and every week, talking to people out there doing something in the world of coaching or human development that is important, and today is such a day. First of all, let's talk. If you're like me, well, God help you. If you are looking for the finest things in life. You like the best wherever you go, and if you're looking for the finest coach training in the world, and I'm not talking about hyperbole, I'm not talking about a sales pitch, I'm talking about truly the finest coach training program in the world. Check out Accomplishment Coaching. You can find them on the web at accomplishmentcoaching.com. They're in North America, throughout the United States, and now in Canada. This program is better than any other coach training program, and almost by any measure I can think of. If we want to talk about successful graduates, their graduates are more successful in the marketplace on average than other coaching schools. If you want to talk about more coaching training hours, if you want to talk about getting more coaching by a professional coach, if you want to talk about giving more coaching to actual live human beings that they bring in from the outside world, not just coach your neighbor or practice this tool with the person sitting next to you. It's an extraordinary program, and you should check it out, accomplishmentcoaching.com. Here's the places. You ready? Here are the places that you can go find them. All over the United States. They've got them in San Diego, California, Seattle, Washington, Chicago, Illinois, the Windy City, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and New York City. So I said all over, but there's sort of a big blank spot in the South. You should probably have them start one there. And if you're in Canada, Victoria, B.C., fly to Victoria and do this program. It's extraordinary. Speaking of extraordinary, man, I'm delighted about our show today. As I said, it's the day after Mardi Gras. It is Valentine's Day. What better day to have for an entire hour, our entire show today, a sex coach, a sexologist, a sexuality educator, sexual wellness coach, a feel-good activist, unapologetic, on a mission to radically improve the way we think about and treat sexuality, ourselves, and each other. We're going to talk today about love, sure, but mostly about the physical manifestation of the will to live, sex. I'm delighted to introduce I believe for the first time on our show. We've been here for 16 years doing this show, and it's her first time on, and that's on me. Dr. Jill is known as the sexologist. In fact, you can find her at thesexologist.com. And just an extraordinary human being. She has 3 degrees in human sexuality, including a PhD and a master's in education. The only known person on the whole planet who does. So that's pretty cool. We're delighted to welcome to our microphones Dr. Jill. Hello.
Hi, good morning. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. I understand you are super duper busy today, and we're delighted to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, let's let's just get to it. Ready? We'll do here's the plan. We'll talk about normal stuff first, and then we'll get to the kinky stuff later. Okay? I was.
Yeah, sounds good.
Frequent listeners of this program know that I do the New York Times crossword on a daily basis, and I was delighted to find today one of the clues was a bad place for a bowling ball or your mind. Want to know what it was?
Please tell.
The gutter. But we're going to spend most of our time there. So we're going to see what I did there. All right. First of all, is it a good idea? So you're somebody that works as a coach with people on sexual issues. Is it a good idea for people to get sex coaching, or is this only for people who have like serious trouble, serious issues?
No, I mean, I think that sexuality, and I believe, and I've seen that sexuality impacts and ripples into every single area of life. It really is the center of what makes us human, and it comes into every other area. So sometimes we'll find that sexuality issues are at play for things that don't necessarily feel sexuality related, and vice versa. A lot of the actual week-to-week work that I'm doing with people has nothing to do with sex, but we know that it's impacting their sexuality. So I think it's very connected, so I don't think you necessarily have to feel like you have a major sexual problem to benefit from sexual coaching.
Great. What's something that people would call you in for to get some coaching around? Is this like people like me who've been married for a while and things are so routine, or is it people who are just looking for some, like single people who are out there who are looking for something beyond swiping right? What sort of mainstream issues are you talking with people about?
Both of those certainly come up. Also, a lot of stuff around body image and genital function and feeling what's normal or not normal, feeling uncomfortable with touch, a lot of discomfort and confusion around asking for what one wants and feeling like they can't just say what it is that they need or want from a partner, a lot of work around communication, a lot of stuff around it can come from, trauma histories, but sometimes not, of just touch or intimacy being very, very difficult. So working through all of that as well. It really runs the gamut, for sure.
Great. So, and is it better to do this in an individual thing, one-on-one, or do you sometimes have couples or trios or polyamorous communities of like-minded individuals come in together?
I definitely prefer working with individuals one-on-one because, with the coaching relationship, I really feel like I'm working with each individual human, and they have their own experiences and goals and desires, and it creates quite a dynamic when you're working in dyad. So I like to, work on the individual, and they'll find, even if their partner isn't in a separate session, that they'll the ripple goes out, and if they're showing up into the sexual relationship as their best sexual self, then that's going to have a positive impact.
It's really clear. Today, the three people, the three of you that watch us on YouTube will note that I dressed up today. I dressed up fancy in my pretty clean shirt, but I also wore my goofy tie because I think everybody's goofy about sex. Everybody that, I think that we think, I think we think that other people know stuff about sex that we don't know, and that we think that we're goofy. Is that true, or do most people not feel that way?
It's funny because I feel like both are and opposites are true at the same time. I feel like a lot of ways that people think that what they do and feel and believe sexually is what everybody else does, and this is a lot of times where we get bias and judgment, like other people thinking like that's weird or why do people do that? Yeah. And our cultural judgment and sex negativity comes from something we don't do or we don't like, and so we project this out and find this, and create this kind of shame thing. But also, at the same time, we also tend to think, are we normal? Is this weird about ourselves? And think that we're the only ones who feel this way, and we're the only, everybody else is doing it right, and I'm the weirdo. So there's both. I don't know how both opposites are true at the same time, but I definitely think that there is truth to what you said, that we kind of feel like, I'm the only one who's goofy like this.
Yeah. Is there, when you first, look, you've talked to thousands of people now. People have read your books. People have done your courses. People work with you one-on-one. If you could wave your magic wand and give the whole world, or at least the whole Western civilization, some piece of information, tidbit, or advice around sex, what would you give us?
I would love for us all to believe that we are worthy of sexual self-compassion, and that, I think that is such a powerful thing that when it comes to our sexuality, if we were taught anything, and a lot of times we weren't taught anything about sexuality growing up, but if we did, we might have got messages about shame that something's wrong or something's weird, or we don't talk about that, or we didn't use the correct word for things because there was so much shame about stuff. And these scripts about what it's supposed to be and what women are supposed to do and what men are supposed to do and how they're supposed to behave and dress and look. And there's just all this stuff. And I think that this makes us feel very bad and hurt. And I think then we act out in hurtful ways. And there's sexual violence and there's domestic violence and there's shame and there's all this. And so I feel like if we could be sexually self-compassionate and make space for who we are and have some gratitude and love around that, I think that would be my magic wand, sprinkling onto the world if I could. I think it would just be lovely for all of us to live like that.
That is beautiful. That
Oh,
and
thank you.
the current hit Despacito, and you've got yourself a great evening, right? A little self-compassion and a nice, maybe some wine. All right, let's talk about. Man, I am, as a parent and as a human who is alive right now, I'm terrified about how people learn about sex, right? I just read the study, you probably know all about it, but I just read this study that came out of teenagers and how and where they're getting their information about sex, and it is pornography. And therefore, they're going out and doing, first of all, jackrabbiting. All these young boys are getting these beautiful young women and doing jackrabbit stuff, and there's all this machismo and posturing, and people are young women are doing things that I believe that they've learned from porn is something that guys like, even though they don't like it. And there's all this sort of pressure from how people are learning. What's a good way for people to learn? And any comments on what I've said so far?
Oh, goodness, I could talk 100 years about the crisis that is sex education for us. Oh, my goodness. I agree. I did a workshop last week, and it was a mixed-age audience. And the icebreaker question was, what did you learn about sex growing up? Yeah. And the people who were, in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s were talking about, I had no idea. And I had to hear bits and pieces from my friends, or maybe I found a magazine. I was left in the dark. I was completely confused. And then you have our 70s, and 80s, and especially these 90s kids who are now, in their 20s, saying, well, I was confused, and then I went online, and I found a bunch of information. So in some ways, it's information, not sitting around confused. They feel like they knew stuff. The problem is what they knew is inaccurate. And I'm like, I don't know which is worse. So when you have pornography, which is fine, and it has its place, but it's entertainment. And when people who are confused about their sexuality, who no one's telling them anything, and they're like, is this normal? I have these feelings, I'm confused. And then they have this readily available resource that's plentiful and very exciting and interesting, giving them information about what it's like or how people behave sexually. It's not it's not what we want them to be learning, because it's not true, right? Like, people don't walk down the street and pull up a van and, have sex with 5 people and go along a day and film it. Like, that's not what most people are doing, but these are kind of the messages. So I would love to see real, comprehensive sex education being empowered to parents and schools and culture at large. So I would love to see, I have so many sex educator friends, and, we are an underemployed batch a lot of times because, the work that we do isn't valued. And I would love to see communities setting up spaces where people who are trained and love to do this work are coming in and offering work wherever, in a yoga studio and wherever, and doing true comprehensive sex education. So this not only includes the truth about the anatomy and about relationships, but also about sensuality, about intimacy and connection with other human beings, about the reproductive aspects, about gender and orientation and the way that we exist as sexual people in the world, about power and oppression and sexuality and the way that violence and things like that can manifest, about our culture and the way our laws and our policies and our cultural traditions and our music all come together to make us who we are sexually. And tapping into all of those issues, I think, would be comprehensive. So I have very lofty worldviews about what I would love to see, because I would like no one to really feel confused and feeling like, they have to go to Pornhub to get their questions answered.
Which is a terrible, terrible place to get your question answered. I've done extensive research on this, so I can tell you that the van place and the Pornhub place, not
and
a
a lot of times I'll hear parents be like, "Oh God, like I don't want to talk to them. Like they're not ready for this, or they don't want to know." And I'm like, "Honey, they're going to find out. Do you want them to hear it from you and your values, or do you want them to learn about it from
a van on the street?"
Drivers 3.
That's right, exactly. All right, let's talk. So that people know, and forgive me, I believe that I sent them to the wrong place. So let's get people to know about you and your work. The website to go to is The Sexologist, SEXOLOGIST.org. This is Dr. Jill McDivitt. You can get books there, Sex Positions for Every Body, Fighting the Crusade Against Sex, and the upcoming hashtag 88 dates. You also have classes, and people can actually play and have fun and have interactive sessions while learning new things, confirming things you may already think you know, and sort of expanding your mind, right? In addition, of course, coaching. There's also free stuff and blogs. Where should people start when they get to the sexologist.org? What's a good first place for people to sort of introduce themselves to your work?
The blog, and interestingly enough, if you want to really get capture like what it is that I'm trying to do with all these kind of seemingly unrelated things. I do the coaching with the one-on-one, which could be more serious and be more, the one-on-one aspect. And then I have these classes, and they can be kind of silly and funny. And then I have these books that are, and then I have these toys, and they kind of seem to be all over the place. So what really can capture what it is I'm about, honestly, is the social media, because that's my day-to-day thinking. So, my Instagram, for instance, SexBackJill, also Facebook, and every day I'm posting and kind of building the case day by day of what I would hope that you're feeling around your sexuality and what I hope that you can put out into the world as a sexual being so we can be in community. And so a lot of this is just this day-to-day thing of sometimes it's serious and I'm on a rant about, something around rape culture, and the next day I'm posting something silly about, penis lattes, and sometimes I'm, posting something really empowering and kind of take each. What's that?
That tastes terrible. Penis lattes? Oh, disgusting.
Somebody is very artistic with creating the foam in very.
Oh, it's just a picture. Okay, good. Yeah, let's move on.
And sometimes I'm just saying, like, I'm rooting for you, and one of my favorite quotes is, "You're a sexual person first, and you share it second." And reminding people that their bodies are good and healthy and their genitals are normal. So, it's equal parts. I like what you said at the beginning about edutainment in your show, because that's very much my philosophy. So, I think to really kind of capture what it is that I'm trying to do is that, edutainment. I want to entertain you, have fun. Sex is supposed to be fun. Sex education, sex coaching can also be really funny. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of laughing in my job. But it can also be really serious, and, there's space for that, and learning, and really deep learning. So that's kind of what I'm about. And then the website is about my services and about, like, how can we work together, whether it's you want to take a class or you want to work one-on-one or you're interested in my books or whatever that might be.
Yeah. Let's, so once again, thesexologist.org. Don't go to .com. See what I did there? .org. And it's Dr. Jill McDevitt, and I want to make sure people know how to spell it because I have been misspelling it. McDevitt is McDevitt. That's McDevitt. Let's talk about kink. Ready? You ready to get kinky?
I'm ready.
Yeah. I like how you took your time there, too. All right. So just so you know who you're talking to, I once, when I was a younger, more handsome man, I once did a men's seminar. You know, it was several days long, and at like midnight on probably the third or fourth night, we start this group of 200 or 300 men start talking about sex, and we do this "Have you ever" kind of game, right? And just so you know, out of this 300 or 250 men, I had done the most with the most times with the most people stuff. So I feel like, just based on that experience, that I have some experience in this world. And yet there's a whole bunch of stuff that I've never tried, wouldn't consider, and think is ewy, right? So let's talk about let's talk about kink. I recently spoke to a yogi, somebody who teaches yoga and lives a yoga lifestyle. And I said, so, you know, in the bedroom, are you like doing some wild yoga stuff? And the brilliant coach that she is, she said, no, just the normal dirty stuff. What is, are we really, as a society, just basically doing the same stuff over and over? Or are we pretty wide-ranging in our interests, tastes, and activities?
I think that human beings are very creative with the ways they can stimulate themselves and others, both emotionally and with their genitals. So I think it's pretty amazing the things that people can come up with that interest them. But at the same time, there's certainly staples that are pretty common. I have a program called Sex Am I Normal, and where I'll get in front of an audience and I will ask very pointed questions, like what you mentioned at the men's seminar, like, have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? And it's not even just sex behaviors, but also experiences and feelings and like polyamorous relationships. Have you ever, been tested? Have you ever, all these, just everything you can think of sexually, have you ever done it? And then people have their phones and they can anonymously text their response, and it comes up as like these bar charts on the screen in the front of the room. So you really get a sneak peek into what people are doing. And it never ceases to amaze the variety. Things that you might seem a little unusual, 70% of the room has done this. And some things that you hear culturally being very popular, for instance, threesomes. People talk about threesomes like they're, very common. They're always in, R-rated type movies where it alludes to this threesome getting started.
Right.
And that's, in my experience of teaching, that has been really uncommon. Not a lot of people have said that they've done a threesome. But lots of people have talked about having, being tied up and whipped, for instance, or, doing some, unique different types of sex acts. So both and all, just like all my answers about sexuality, usually like yes and also no, because we're just so unique.
Okay. Well, let's get a little more specific and a little more dirty. Okay. So this whole 50 Shades thing, is that revealing something that's been prevalent in the culture, at least in the Western civilization, or is it really like something that people are excited about but we're not doing so much, or has it renewed people's interest? What?
Can I just say, the 50 Shades of Grey has been one of the bane of my recent career, because it is such a misrepresentation of good, dirty BDSM kink sex, because it's missing the key component of what kinky sex is about, and that is, the consensual release, the power that comes from relinquishing control, and also the power that comes from being endowed control in a consensual setting. Otherwise, it's just really assault. So that power dynamic was completely flipped upside down in this book. We have the main female character being afraid of him. The male character uses manipulation tactics, is manipulative. The things that we see as red flags in truly abusive and domestic violence type relationships. So for me, there was, when the 50 Shades came out, and I was like, is this something that people, like your question, is this something that people are interested in? And now this book is giving them permission to let it out and talk about it and explore it? Or is this people getting ideas? And they're like, I never thought of this before, but this sounds really exciting. Either way, I'm concerned because that's not a great representation. So if people are doing what's in that book, they're, that's not that's not the greatest. But I do think ultimately, so it's been a few years now, ultimately it was, my fears, I feel like, have been lessened a bit, because I feel like it was the best case scenario, that people were seeing through a lot of that and they're just doing the actual behaviors. So maybe if they're using Benoit balls, or they have some type of kink room, and they're definitely doing the taps. I cannot tell you how I sold out of Benoit balls when this book came out. People were coming in. Do you have rope? Do you have handcuffs? Do you have silk ties? Do you have, the vagina balls? Can we buy these? How do we use these? Lots of questions. So I really think a lot of this was ideas. People were like, ooh, this is different. And now I have permission to explore it because everybody in the world is talking about it. But I was, of course, always giving folks the, okay, but here's how to do it in a safe and fun way. Here's where the book got it wrong, and to, not do that part of it.
So
I think it was mostly new ideas.
Yeah, so my Benoit balls, they're meant for vagina. Okay, my bad.
That's a different thing. You need the stopper for that.
And also, it helps if
they're in the ER.
if they're on a string. You need the string, so you could.
Yes,
anyway.
You need a string.
Let's. What about? Oh my gosh, we're gonna run out of time. Okay. Yeah, I think we're about to take a break. I want to let people know that the place to go, and this is just a break, people. When we come back, we'll continue talking about kink, we'll talk about sexual politics and the Me Too movement and more. Meanwhile, go to thesexologist.org and find out more about Dr. Jill McDevitt and all of her great work, including the blog. Start there, but also check out the classes, the coaching, and, of course, the books. Dr. Jill, if somebody's not coming back for the second part, what do you want them to be? What do you want them to take with you? Not take with you. Take with them.
I just think that I hope that if sexuality is something that's uncomfortable for you or you're bashful about, I hope that even just this conversation helped you be that much more open and comfortable and aware, and that you can continue to explore in that human development piece of your sexuality, even just through this conversation, and take that with you.
That, and I love the compassion piece. Compassion is the number one. When we come back, we'll talk about her #88dates project and more, as well as kink, sexual politics, the Me Too movement, and power and sex. You're listening to The Coaching Show here on WSRadio.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Are you seeking to change your career to something that is both fulfilling and challenging? Do you want to help people reach their full potential and strive to achieve their dreams? Would you like to inspire those around you and help create a better world? If you're serious about a career change or just want to explore the craft of personal coaching, contact Accomplishment Coaching. With locations across the country in Washington, D.C., Seattle, Chicago, New York City, and San Diego, Accomplishment Coaching is the leading institution in personal coaching. Our staff carefully monitors the entire program, live during the training process, and have met the strict standards of ICF International to achieve accreditation. Through a focus on quality instruction rather than endless modules of training, Accomplishment Coaching will guide you from your very first step all the way to becoming one of the finest coaches in the world. Visit AccomplishmentCoaching.com to learn more. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach.
Christopher McCullough is your source for the latest in the world of personal coaching. Whether it be speaking with such luminaries as Deepak Chopra or getting the newest techniques and innovation, the Coaching Show is always on the cutting edge of what's happening now.
Gotham Books presents Marriage Rules by Harriet Lerner. The book Martha Beck calls required reading for anyone hoping to interact successfully with any other human, not just for those in romantic relationships. Get your copy wherever books and ebooks are sold, and visit harrietlerner.com to learn how to change your marriage today.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the coaches training program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome back to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McAuliffe.
Thank you very much, Dick Warren, and my dear listeners. We're talking today with Dr. Jill McDivitt. It's Valentine's Day if you're listening live, and if you're not, it still was Valentine's Day. And we're delighted to talk to Dr. Jill because she is the sexologist. You can find her on the web at Sexologist, SEXOLOGIST.org. Don't go to .com, go to .org. And you can find out all about her blog, her...
Like 2.5, 3 months of the year to really get out and explore things. So we would have a habit of, at the beginning of the summer, making a list of all the things we wanted to go do, make sure we get that camping trip in, make sure, whatever it is. And then the one summer, that May, was the that shooting at the UC Santa Barbara, as you may recall. This 2013 or 2014, and it was one of the mass shootings, and it was coming from a space where the shooter specifically targeted women because he felt that he was entitled to sex with women, and he's like, I'm a young guy, and they should want to have sex with me, and he felt, he was deprived of this, and he wanted to take his vengeance out on women, and he murdered a bunch of women. And I was absolutely distraught.
This story took a bad turn quickly. Okay. So you're distraught, right?
I'm sorry about it. I was absolutely distraught, and so I wanted to turn my husband and I going out on dates and doing something powerful and fun and a connection and just remembering that there's good stuff in the world after these types of things happen. So we we really spent a lot of time coming up with things that were really going to be good ways to spend time together that summer. It turned into, I had a big, I have a big social media following. I was like, let's turn this also into a learning and modeling opportunity, cutting down on gender myths about what women are supposed to do and what men are supposed to do. Let's go on dates together that are very gendered. So we went and got our nails done together, and he did that. And I went and did an autocross with him and car racing. And so we just had a lot of fun together and modeled healthy relationships and healthy masculinity for our followers. And it turned into this idea of going on 88 unique dates throughout the year. So it turned out not just the summer. And 88 dates is several times a week. So this was something we really had to stay on top of and do a lot of planning. And it started to get quite a following, and people were really inspired by all that we were doing, both the reason behind it, but also just the fun that we were having and the connection and the uniqueness of exploring outside our boundaries. We did the weirdest and most off-the-wall thing. We went to a cat show at a cat convention. Anything was fair game outside of our comfort zone. And so this really has been years now, and we do it every year. Keep unique. So now we're on several hundred unique dates. And people really just have resonated. It's really, really resonated with people, this idea of intimacy and spending time together and stepping outside your boundaries. And so it kind of turned into quite a thing. So I decided to turn it into a book because people were interested in that. And I just turned it into, as a Valentine's Day special, doing a 10-day challenge where every day I send you a date and I give you ways to support you through, whether it's a money situation or you have kids or, you don't have time or whatever gets in our way of doing this type of activity in our lives with our loved ones. And, supporting and giving also the research back on why unique and, novelty in relationships is really important, and spending time together is really important. prioritizing spending time with them is really important. So that's something that I'm offering right now. So it started, sorry to start it off. It started in a bad place, but it's turned into this beautiful thing, and I'm really happy about that.
I love that. And how perfect for someone who does what you do and is a sexologist to take things that are, tragedies and turn them into triumphs. Really beautiful. So there's a 10-day unique dating challenge. How do we get in on this?
So it's at thesexologist.org, and you go to the challenges link. And I have the early bird special that's going on today. So if anybody's got last-minute Valentine's Day gifts, they're like, oh no, presenting this as your gift, it would be lovely. It starts on Monday, so you can get your registration in today. And Monday starts with an email. Like I said, you get a unique thing that you can do together, and all the support and private Facebook group where we cheer each other on. And you can post your cute date pictures, and it's a really lovely, supportive environment. I've done one on sexual self-care, and that was really, really powerful. So I'm sure this will be equally as powerful for folks.
And what a deal. The early bird price, today only, kids. Today only. Get in there, thesexologist.org under challenges. Early bird price, $34 per couple. You can't afford not to do this thing. 10-day unique dating challenge based on the #88dates project. Okay, let's talk about let's get up in this piece about some sexual politics. Actually,
my favorite.
Yeah. So, first of all, let's go back a step. You said, man, this whole 50 Shades thing, it's not really working. It's not really great. And there are some great ways to get into the BDSM world where you can actually, people who are tops have responsibility for knowing and caring for and making sure that it's a positive experience for everyone, even when it's being a negative, experience. And people who are giving up, or submissive are really doing it in a conscious way. Is there a better introduction than this 50 Shades stuff for people who are interested in getting into that? Should they go get the submission of Emma Marx? Is there a book that people should be reading that's better than, in your opinion, than the 50 Shades?
Yeah, it's not a sexy book like 50 Shades, but it's a good primer. It's called SM 101. And it's pretty straightforward, and it is a minutia and the detail that the writer gets into about every question you can possibly ask. What about this, and how do you get into this, and different types of rope, fiber, and how that will feel. It's a primer, but also if you want to dive deep, really, really excellent book. Actually, even as a practitioner, as a sexologist, learning that for clients is really, really helpful for me. So if it's something that you're interested in exploring, this will definitely give you the straight truth on how it happens.
The straight truth. See what you did there. Okay, let's talk about something. Oh, gosh, I know I promised you sexual politics, but I think we got to talk about one other thing first. But I think it's involved in sexual politics, which is, so I'm reading this study that was done with all these teenagers about where they learn about sex and what their activities are and stuff. And it's okay. I get that there's, reputation issues and the amount of fellatio and different things, and especially in the Tinder culture where people are sort of taking the intimacy out of the most intimate of acts, right, arguably sex. But I was appalled, shocked, and horrified and kind of terrified for my children's generation that there seems to be a lot of emphasis on anal penetration. Is this a thing? Is this something that as a society we should worry about? Is this it's okay, we'll get over it in 2 more years? What do you think's going on there?
When we talked about the crisis of sex education earlier, and one of the well done folks, what we did is that we've petrified people about pregnancy. We've done so much about shaming teen pregnancy and shaming birth control and shaming all the ways that people take care of themselves with reproduction and don't, and STIs, and we've just spent 20 good years obsessed with abstinence and these things. Right. So it doesn't really surprise me that people are well, pregnancy is horrifying, and abortion is horrifying. Yeah, all these things that we're not allowed to do and are bad and politicized. So, oral sex, anal sex, other things are ways to not have to worry about that. Mm-hmm. That would be one guess and take I have. Also it's different. It's kind of an interesting and different kind of thing. So it can feel good. So there's always that. It always goes down to why are people doing this? I'm does it feel good? That's probably one of the reasons that they're doing it. So I think that those are probably a part of it. But a lot of adults do also. So I'm not sure percentage-wise if this is something that's changed, but it wouldn't surprise me for the reasons I was just thinking.
Yeah, for me, the horror, terror, or concern is that, it's something that with the advent of, so much easily available free porn that, because the porn stars are doing it, now, kids in school are going to do it. I'm reminded that, it seems like every generation, right, has some source of good sex information, right? I remember when, I'm old enough to know everything you always want to know about sex, but we're afraid to ask. And then there was the Joy of Sex generation, where they had like drawings with hair in places, and so you used to be able to like go to your parents' bookshelf and learn something when they were out. And then there's, you're perhaps more in the generation of like Loveline, right, where if you listen to the radio late at night, Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla would sort of guide you into wiser moves in your sexual and romantic life. Is there something that's out there today that you recommend to people? Like if you want to know about, better, if you want to be better informed, if you want to get sort of the true truth, this is a spot for it?
Yeah, well, I mean, now there's great internet and online resources, but if we're talking books, I really like, it's called The Guide to Getting It On. It's thick as a phone book, and it is very, as you can tell by the title, very honest and real and straightforward. And it has a new edition every year, so it's always up to date, always staying finger on the pulse of what's going on culturally. It's a great book. I'm all the books you mentioned, I'm looking at my bookshelves as we speak, and I'm like, I have all those. Just The Joy of Sex, and collecting the books as they come out and become ever more progressive. And I really like The Guide to Getting It On as a modern iteration. But there's also a lot of like YouTube channels that really do a good job of being sex positive and really informative. There's a lot of blogs. So I think that might be more realistic places for young people, like Lindsay Doe and is great, YouTube, and I really like The Body Is Not an Apology for like more of a general body sex positive Instagram account. So things like that I think are really great resources.
Nice. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get to it. So
Sure.
we're in a really a watershed moment as a culture, at least in the United States these days, of this Me Too movement. And look, there's a million ways we could talk about this, including, what about people who are unjustly accused? Although, really, 19, 20 people accuse you, I'm pretty sure there's some fire in that smoke. But I kind of wanted to bring it in from an unusual aspect. The comic Gerard Carmichael, do you know this guy? He had a show on NBC for a while. He has this line in one of his comedy specials that rang so like edgy to me, but also a little bit true. And what he says is, all sex is a little bit rapey. That there's some power dynamic. What I take from that, forgive me, I'm not trying to explain the joke, but that there's some power dynamic. There's some tension between or among the participants in sex, and that it's kind of part of the fun part, right? Is the being conquered piece, but clearly in a political realm or in the political context, it's a terrible idea. How do you bridge that gap, or how do you invite people to take that on?
I've heard quotes like that before, and I disagree. And that's because, I understand what they're saying. Like, in a patriarchy, like, inherently is anyone able to, consent when there's all these social forces and dynamics. However, to buy into this model, we have to then believe that nobody has sexual agency, right? So what we're then saying is that women or men or anybody really doesn't have any agency over their own sexual bodies, that they aren't capable of making decisions to say yes, right? We focus on the saying no piece, right? But to say yes. So when one says, I want to have sex, I want to do this, I want to have this connection with you, and to say, no, you really don't. You're feeling forced to say that. Or, there's a power dynamic here that's making you I feel like it's riskier, and I don't want to live in a world where that's true. I don't want to believe that I can't say yes to something, or if I say yes, that there's somebody who's going to be like not trusting me. So I really think it's more important for us to believe the no's, but also believe the yeses. And so I don't subscribe to that idea, although I appreciate, the idea that there is power going on, for sure.
Well, if you don't mind, let's delve into this, because it seems to me that especially when it comes to sex, you're dealing with this a fair amount, right? There's in almost any sexual relationships that I'm aware of, there's some element, even in multi-partner things, there's some element of, there are aggressors and receivers. There's a pitcher and a catcher. There's somebody who's chasing and someone who's being chased, or someone who's excited to welcome you and somebody who's being welcomed. Does that make sense? And so in that dynamic of sex, right? And look, probably in healthy relationships, not that I've ever been in one, there's maybe even a changing of the roles, right? You talk about in #88 dates, right? That like, hey, let's try different roles out. Let's see if you like getting your toenails painted or whatever, right? But it strikes me as still a like sort of a constant tension between that, like, hey, I want you, do you want me notion, and this sort of taking it out of the sexy realm and into the personal attacks realm, where it's like, I want you and you must submit. How do you is it any clearer what I'm asking, or is it the same answer, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of, I hear you're saying, like all relationships have that kind of dynamic. But in like a BDSM type setting, the argument is that the bottom, or the sub or submissive, is really the one with the power.
Right.
Because they're the one who gets to ultimately put a stop to it, or they're the one. It's basically their limits are the one. Is the limit. And so I think it's not as black and white as that there's a catcher and a pitcher. I think it can be really complicated, and I think that's the beauty, but also kind of the aura of like why sexuality is so powerful, and why thinking about it gets us all confused, but intrigued, because there isn't a simple answer. I don't think it is that simple, I guess. I don't know how to explain the complication, or even if I understand it fully myself, honestly. But I think my hunch is like it's more complex than a simple power exchange. I think, I guess that's kind of where I'm thinking with that.
Yeah, and look, it's an impossible question to answer, right? I own that. But what I'm also pointing to is that, God, I would love it if we lived in a society where, as I think you've talked about all throughout our conversation today, where we can both have fun with it and play with because when you're in a nice banter situation with someone, either intellectually or romantically or flirting in a flirtatious thing, right, where they're sort of pushing you away and you're sort of aggressing, or vice versa, that when it's play and when it's fun like that. But then I think we also all know when we're in one of those dynamics and we don't want to be there, right? Like the other person, it's very rare, certainly, and I'm not suggesting that it's at all the same thing as what the Me Too people are dealing with. But every once in a while in my life, I've been with someone who was aggressively sexual towards me, and I was like, ooh, not into it, right? And there's finesse on both things, right? There's finesse in getting somebody interested who might like the sort of flirtatious aspects, and there's also finesse in turning someone's attention away from you when it's unwelcome. Any tips for women and men, but I think mostly women in this day and age, who are experiencing that unwanted attention? Is there some approach or something that you recommend that people take on?
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to to go with that angle, because I think a lot of times it's about what women are doing or not doing. So, I'll say, don't be afraid to be so-called rude. A lot of times I think women, we deal with stuff because we don't want to seem rude. And I'm just like, say, go away. I'm not interested. Goodbye. Like, just, you're not interested, you're not interested. But I think the issue is that their reticence to say, no, I'm not interested, go away, stop bothering me, whatever it is that we have so many experiences of men becoming violent when we do say that. And so I really want to focus on, like, what can men be doing to better read signals, or better to err on the side of no and tread lightly as that flirting and that banter and that aggressiveness of sexual pursuit is occurring, because the onus is really on the pursuer to be clear about their sexual intentions and to receive no's and disinterest with compassion and humility, because a lot of times that one might say ever so politely, oh, I'm not really interested, but thank you, or, whatever, and it's just like, all right, expletive, I never liked you anyway, you're
Right.
this and you're that, or worse. There's a whole online community of people taking screenshots from Tinder or other online dating where, someone's like, you want to go out, or I'm interested, and, someone's like, no, thank you, and then it's just a barrage of violence, and so in keeping with the world of compassion around sexuality, we really need to be compassionate and empathetic about when we're pursuing someone sexually to not make them feel uncomfortable and not really have to put them in a position where we are making them feel that way. So, it's difficult. Again, it's difficult, complicated, nuanced, all the things it always is with sexuality.
Yeah, and I really hear the call for more education and more compassion, but also more conversation like this. People get this idea in their head because they're spending time on screens or on websites or whatever, and then they get the idea that, you can go immediately from, hey, do you want a cup of coffee, to, hey, do you want to, see my open bathrobe? No, I do not. A cup of coffee does not equate, right? And that, I'm hearing your call for compassion. I'm hearing your call for education. And if you don't mind, I'll throw in my call for Despacito. This whole notion that we're in such a frickin' hurry that you can swipe right and 20 minutes later be, in somebody's bedroom with them. It seems to me that there's a couple of steps missing there, or at least a couple of important steps of getting to know someone, have a cup of coffee, just be a cup of coffee, and actually find out if you like that person. Am I too old-fashioned? Have I missed the boat here? Or do you think that moving a little slower is good in
so
this
I'll frame it
one?
like this. I think there's space for that. Certainly, sometimes that can work for people, and that's what they need, and that's the type of connection. And if everybody's adulty and consenting and cool with that arrangement, I say have at it. However, I do see what you're saying, that there really seems to be, what's the word? Like just a lack of desire to see the other person on the other end of the phone or whatever vehicle you're meeting these folks as a human being. I really do see there's a dehumanization component that's been happening with Tinder and online, where it's literally like some folks, there's a phenomenon of people just swiping on every single person, messaging the same copy and paste to every single person and just seeing what sticks. Whereas, but pretending like they're in a relationship, and that's where the key piece is. There's a betrayal. Like there's pretending like I'm interested in you. Hey, let's get a cup of coffee, and they're not really interested in that. They're just wanting to have sex. So just say that you want to have sex, or get on a platform for people who want to have sex, and the people. So I think it's about being authentic,
right?
And just saying, and being real.
Tell the truth.
Whereas a lot of things is, if you want to just jump into bed, then get together with people who also want to jump into bed. But I think there's a lot of people who are looking for love and looking for companionship, and they're being led on these wild goose chases by people who pretend they do, and they really just want to have sex.
Well, our time has flown by. So education,
oh my goodness,
getting real, and these wonderful opportunities to work with you. Once again, the website is thesexologist.org. This is Dr. Jill. Check out the books. Definitely get that 10-day unique dating challenge. Go get that immediately because the early bird special is today only. With about 15 seconds left, any last thoughts you want to leave people with, a parting shot or a parting thought? But it's got to be quick.
Yeah, just just love on yourself this Valentine's Day. I know a lot of times there's stuff that comes up if you're single or if you're not in a relationship. Like, this can be love for you, too. It's all good. Love on yourself. Put it out into the world.
Beautiful. Dr. Jill McDivitt, thank you so much for being with us. Have a happy Valentine's Day. And a happy Valentine's Day
thank you.
to you, our listeners. Another extraordinary edition of The Coaching Show. I learned a lot. Hope you did, too. And we will talk to you, as every week, next week. Thanks for listening.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or